agreed to.
Mr Speaker.
I call the honourable member Darian Fenton.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm pleased to take a call in the second reading of the Land Transport Amendment Bill as well, and also share the compliments of the Minister for the work of the committee, who were actually given a very short time to get this work done. And as you also heard, there were 106 submissions, a great deal of interest in this bill. So the committee did do its work diligently. And I'm really pleased that we finally have this measure back in the House, and I hope that it will get through before the election, because it has been a long journey for this debate about lowering the adult legal alcohol limit. And it started way back in 2009, and we could have had this provision all of those years ago, Mr Speaker, 5 years ago, when the former MP Darren Hughes introduced a members' bill that would have done exactly what this bill is doing. Slightly different penalty regime, but we would have had at that time, if the government had adopted it, we would have had this provision as part of our road safety measures out on the road from 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, and well into this year as well, of course. However, I understand that the government doesn't like taking good ideas from the opposition, so I understand why they didn't do that. But then in 2010, there was another opportunity to do something about this issue. There was a bill that came to the Transport and Industrial Relations Committee, which followed on from the Cabinet consideration of the issue, and that was the Land Transport, Road Safety and Other Matters Amendment Bill. Now, during the submissions on that bill, the number one issue that was raised by submitters was this issue of the adult blood alcohol limit. Again and again, submitters came along and said it was missing from the bill, it could be dealt with under that bill, and we had submissions from the Drug Foundation, the Cycling Advocates Network, Alcohol Health Watch, Drink Driving Interventions Trust, the National Addiction Centre, and even the Herald on Sunday. And the Herald on Sunday at that time ran a campaign about this. And at the same time, Darren Hughes' bill was taken over by Ian Lees-Galloway. And it supported Ian Lees-Galloway's bill. And it got New Zealanders to pledge to drink 2 drinks before they got in the car as a maximum. And it was a very successful campaign. So the government would have been getting the same feedback that we were at that time, that the public wanted it. And there was poll after poll saying the public saw this as one of the number one issues. Now, during the committee stages of the Land Transport, Road Safety and Other Matters Amendment Bill, Labor put up an amendment that would have reduced the blood alcohol limit back in 2010. So there was another chance for the government to take up the issue, but guess what? Guess what?
They didn't do it.
They voted against it. And they have consistently refused to support members' bills and assistance from this side of the House to try and get this issue addressed way back. Even then, there were other opportunities. There was, of course, all of the alcohol reform process. There were amendments that went up during that process. And there was, as I say, ongoing opportunities for the government to address it. The bill was finally drawn, Ian Lees-Galloway's bill was drawn from the ballot way back at the beginning of 2013. We could have progressed that, got on with that quickly, picked it up, got it off to Select Committee, done the work on it, had it in place by now. So it is disappointing that for some reason, and I've never really understood why, the government, the then Minister Stephen Joyce was very resistant to it, and he kept insisting, despite the evidence that came before the Select Committee, the evidence, the research from around the world, the evidence from other countries who have adopted these measures of their success in reducing accidents and deaths on the road. Despite the evidence, he insisted that we needed to have New Zealand-based evidence, and it would take 2 years to do it. So it got sent off. It got sent off to some deep dark hole and ignored basically until now. So, maybe it took a new minister to get it up in cabinet. I don't know. I don't know what happened. But I do regret the fact that we have had this opportunity to do something about saving lives in a pretty straightforward measure, and we're only doing it now. But however, and I also don't believe that we had to go through the whole thing of convincing the public. I remember way back when Stephen Choice became the Transport Minister, and he introduced the cell phone restrictions. And he said that was a no-brainer. And I agreed with him, actually. Labor didn't do it, and it wasn't a no-brainer. I mean, even though people still break the rules. So I could never understand why he thought this wasn't a no-brainer. And particularly when I think he went on TV. He went on Campbell Live and downed a whole lot of drinks and demonstrated that there's no way he could, I think it was something like 9 standard drinks that a man of his size could consume to meet the current alcohol limit before he could get in a car. And he said there's just no way he could do it. And we saw other examples of even larger men getting up to 12 standard drinks and beer after beer being thrown down their throats and apparently and allegedly safe. It was safe for them to drive. Put them in a simulator, that's right, it was terrifying, really. And at the same time, as I said, there was evidence from overseas. Australia's done it years ago in New South Wales, and the result of that was an 8% reduction in fatal crashes and a 7% reduction in crashes causing serious injury. Queensland achieved an 18% reduction in fatal crashes and a 14% reduction in serious crashes. And on it goes in Belgium and France and country after country. But I reckon if the Aussies could do it all those years ago, why couldn't we? If you can persuade beer-swilling Aussies that they should reduce their alcohol intake, change the law in the way that this bill eventually does, why couldn't we do it? Well, way back then. However, I don't want to sound bitter about it. I'm pleased that it's one of the last bills I'm likely to be speaking on before I leave Parliament, and I'm pleased that it will be something that finally becomes law, a sensible piece of legislation. There were some amendments made during the Select Committee stages, and we spent quite a lot of time around this issue of what happens if a driver refuses to take a breath test, and then has to have a blood test, or if they're required to have an evidential blood test, and how much they should be charged for it, and then how you recover that money, or is it recoverable? And that caused a bit of a glitch for a wee while. The bill sort of disappeared back to the Minister's office, I think, for 3 or 4 weeks while Jerry Brownlee tried to get his brain into gear and figure out what he could do. Now, the solution the Select Committee's come up with and is recommending, well, we'll see how that goes, Mr Speaker. Labor supported this because, as I said to the media when they asked me about it, we just want to get the damn thing done. But we do have concerns. I do predict there will be litigation around this area, particularly when it comes to the point of trying to recover the costs of unpaid blood tests, for taking blood tests. Setting Bay Corp on people will be interesting, and I do predict there will be some interesting legal ramifications for this. But having said that, Mr Speaker, I am very genuinely pleased to support this bill, and may it become law very, very soon. Thank you.
Good speech.
I call the honourable member David Bennett.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and to a very honourable speaker we have in the chair today as well. And I would like to thank that previous member, Darian Fenton, for her very good speech and also her commitment to the Transport Industrial Relations Select Committee over the years.